Good day to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our tropical weather outlook for September 14th, 2025. Chances of development are starting to heat up in the Atlantic Basin as it now looks like we are finally on our way to getting our next named storm here in the Atlantic, finally for the peak of the hurricane season. And I'm going to go over all of the models today and how our area of interest in the Atlantic is generally doing so far today, as well as other things, not just in the Atlantic Basin as well. And that includes the resurrection of Tropical Storm Mario, which, if you remember, died about a day or two ago, suddenly. But now it's resurrected and is now back from the dead. And Mario is actually doing pretty well this morning, so I'll show you the latest on that as well in a little bit. But let's start off in the Atlantic Basin with the National Hurricane Center tropical weather bulletin, as we do pretty much every single day. The latest development chances in the Atlantic, and they are beginning to heat up. It is now up to a 70% chance of formation in the next 7 days. So a high chance. We are now at code red. But still a low chance for now in the next 48 hours at 10%. This is really only supposed to get going as we head into the middle of and latter portion of this upcoming week. But still, looks like longer term chances of development are now really beginning to go up. Meanwhile, in the Eastern Pacific, there is quite a bit of activity happening right now. There's an area of interest here in the Central Pacific, although this is more than likely not going to develop. Another area off the coast of Mexico here. This could potentially develop and become another storm, as I'll show you towards the end with the GFS model. And then finally, we have Tropical Storm Mario, which is resurrected from the dead, formed as of this morning. Maximum sustained winds at 40 miles per hour with a minimum central pressure of 1,004 millibars. And I'll show you the satellite imagery right now. Definitely doing very healthy, much healthier than it was a day or two ago when it was off the coast of Mexico and pretty much a slop fest. No organized convection and barely an organized center. And now it's back to being organized. Lots of convective activity blowing up here in recent frames. And this is probably intensifying pretty decently right now. And this is going to have a few days of favorable conditions to intensify. As you can see here, going to remain a tropical storm for a few days, although as we get towards next week, it'll begin to die off. But one thing that is a good news is that this will remain off the coast of Mexico and likely not bring any impacts other than some rip currents, probably, because, again, this is a tropical system, so that's what we typically get with storms. Even if they are offshore, they produce swells, and those swells result in high waves and an increased rip current risk along the coastline. So that's probably the only major thing that we're going to be dealing with when it comes to Mario in the Pacific, and kind of the major thing right now in the Pacific in general. But interesting nonetheless, Mario has resurrected pretty much from the dead. Moving on into the Atlantic right now, and this is a look specifically at the Eastern Atlantic, so we can get a better close-up view of our tropical wave that we are tracking. And you can see it is here in the Eastern Atlantic, just to the west of the Cape or Cabo Verde Islands. That's how you officially say it. And it's producing some decent convection, definitely more convection than when we had 91L here in the MDR, so definitely maybe has a little bit more of a leg up in terms of moisture and overall favorability in the atmosphere compared to when we were tracking the Invest about a week or so ago in the MDR. So already one sign that maybe this has a better chance to develop, and it's definitely producing a decent amount of convection, I will say that, and 850 millibar vorticity as well. You can see that there is definitely quite a bit of vorticity associated with it, although obviously not super organized yet. And you can see on the convective satellite imagery here, kind of a large stretch of convection stretching all the way from 15 north all the way down to below 10 north, and kind of see that here as well on the vorticity signature. So still needs to consolidate, still needs to organize a little bit more, and that's probably going to take a few days as this traverses west throughout the MDR. And to sum it up nicely, this is a tweet from Andrew Austin Adler on X, or officially otherwise known as Twitter, and he sums it up what the general overall structure is with the wave right now. And it's of course, in the Eastern Atlantic, convectively active, and this has two competing areas of vorticity along the wave axis, in addition to stable air just to the northwest of it. And he says that eventually models consolidate this into a TC, as I'll show you in a little bit. All of the models pretty much show this developing, but uncertainty remains regarding the timing and placement of the dominant LLC, as well as potential shear from an upper low to the northwest, as we've been dealing with quite consistently over the past several weeks, and quite a lot throughout this hurricane season in general. And that's why a lot of these waves have really not been able to get going. Lots of dry air in the MDR, as well as the TUT, and a lot of TUTs we've been having. And again, they bring dry air and shear and just overall not favorable conditions to the MDR. And as I'll show you on the mid-level vorticity, not mid-level vorticity, but mid-level moisture shot, you could see that the effects of the TUT, the effects of the general wave breaking pattern that we've been having in the Atlantic, as I've been explaining to you over the past several days, definitely still noticeable throughout the MDR, especially as you go further to the northwest. Lots of drier air still prevalent in the atmosphere in the MDR, and we'll see how this wave holds up compared to the conditions that it has ahead of it. As I said about a day or two ago, as this was coming off of Africa, definitely looks like it has a little bit more moisture content with it. And as you can see, especially in the far eastern Atlantic, just off the coast of Africa, the atmosphere is definitely a lot more moist. So I would assume that even if this wave somehow fails once again, which I'll show you with the models in a little bit, that's actually unlikely, at least according to what the models show now. But I'm pretty sure that all of the waves behind this one will probably have a more favorable environment. At least you would think that they would. And as I've been saying for the past several days, maybe this is finally the start of things becoming more favorable here in the Atlantic, and we finally kick into high gear officially for the start of the peak of the hurricane season. But it looks like it probably will start with this wave, and as I'll show you here with the European ensembles, the 0Z run from this morning, all of the ensembles pretty much, or most of them, showing development here of this system as this traverses into the MDR. And as this gets further north and west, again, because of the troughiness and the TUT pattern we have in the central and eastern Atlantic, this is probably going to go straight out to sea, or at least that's pretty much what all of the model ensembles are showing right now. But they actually do show quite a bit of strong ensembles here, so maybe this will take a few days to be able to consolidate. But once it gets into favorable conditions, it'll probably be able to intensify. And it's not just the European showing this, it's also the Google AI model. And I definitely want to use this model a lot more in the coming weeks, as we're now again in the peak of the hurricane season. And two major models, the European and the Google model, both showing pretty staunch development chances and a lot of strong ensembles too. So I'd say that the signal, at least among the major global models like the European, and if you want to use if you want to count the Google AI model as a major model, this has a pretty strong consensus from all of the models that this has a pretty high likelihood of development. And then finally, taking a look at the GFS, you could see here over in the 12Z run over the next week, and you can see what happens here. The GFS actually now showing pretty decent development. And this is actually compared to, if you remember, yesterday and the day before. The GFS was not as enthusiastic, at least on the operational run. The operational dynamical model, like I'm showing you here, not as enthusiastic of development in the last several days. But today, you definitely see that they are showing development. It looks like they already have a fully developed tropical system occurring by the time we get to Wednesday and Thursday of this upcoming week, and then eventually kind of, holds on here a little bit in the MDR, and then eventually as this gets further northwest, it blossoms and becomes a pretty intense tropical system, but that's kind of beyond 7 days, so I'm not really going to go into detail about what happens beyond 7 days, but within the next week, you see here GFS2, so that is now 3 models showing development. Well, to be fair, 2 of the models are ensembles, and this one is the operational, but still, that's multiple models showing development, and a pretty strong indication of development, too, for our wave in the MDR. So things are beginning to ramp up. It looks like this one might finally be the one after all. And then really quickly to end out, I want to show you what's going to happen in the Eastern Pacific over the next week. You can see here the vorticity. This is now what is Tropical Storm Mario. And I guess that this, Mario resurrecting completely came out of left field. I certainly did not expect it. And I guess the models didn't fully latch onto it either. So you can kind of see the GFS is a little bit messy with this, but it does show at least some vorticity signature with it. And then it has this very weird, probably ITCZ connected here in the Pacific mess of vorticity of something else that tries to consolidate, very interestingly. But then, as we head into, again, the middle to latter portion of next week, we get something that consolidates here in the Pacific, and that's probably that AOI that's off the southwestern coast of Mexico, and that consolidates pretty quickly and probably becomes a decently strong storm here in the Eastern Pacific. So quite a bit to track in this upcoming week. And we will certainly continue to do that here on this channel. Going to continue to post every day as we progress into this upcoming week. So we have potentially a new system finally in the Atlantic, and more development to come. The gravy train continuing with activity in the Eastern Pacific. Definitely sounds a lot more like peak of the hurricane season to me than what we have been dealing with over the past several weeks. Although you never know what could happen with this thing in the MDR. Still a lot of uncertainty with it in terms of how it's going to develop, but looks like the chances are going up. National Hurricane Center now has a high chance, and seemingly the models have still not backed down on development occurring with this storm. And, all the models, the European ensembles, GFS, show a pretty decently strong storm. So looking more and more likely that this might finally be the one. With that being said, I'm going to end it off for today's video. Hope you enjoyed what you saw. If you did, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on the notification bell too. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And as always, I'll be back with more this upcoming week. See you then.